Hi there, this is Jeanette. Today I have some cute post-it holders that I created for my boys. This is something they ask me to create for them all the time, little holders for post-it notes. And the lawn fawn images are perfect for this size. They fit into the square quite nicely, and there's so many cute little critters to choose from, so it's always a lot of fun to create these for my boys. So these are the 4 that I created, and we'll dive right in and I'll show you how I did it. So I pulled out a whole bunch of the stamps that I had and sort of chose which ones I wanted to stamp out. I am going to be stamping them on some watercolor paper with Ranger Archival black ink. It stamps so nicely on the watercolor paper and it doesn't bleed when you use water on it. So that's what I'm using, and I'm just going ahead and stamping out all the little critters. I did stamp more than I needed. I wasn't sure exactly which ones I was going to use. And I am sort of cleaning them in between and putting them right back into their packaging so that I don't lose them. When you're playing around with so many stamps, it's easy, especially the clear ones, to sort of lose them or they get stuck to something and then you're hunting for them. So I try to really be on the ball and like clean them, put them right back, so I don't have to look for them later. This little ice stamp I did stamp a few times in case I wanted to use it more than once. And the way I colored it was using some Zig Clean Color markers. This is the light blue one. And I saw Jennifer McGuire do this on her blog, where she took a clear Wink of Stella pen and she blended out the color using that. And I thought that would work so nicely on the ice. It would give it a nice sort of glittery, sparkly finish. So that's what I did for that. I put down my blue Zig marker and then I blended it out with my clear Wink of Stella pen. And it worked so nicely, I thought I would do that on the little igloo as well. And this is some really basic coloring. I'm not, going all out with the shading and everything. I just want to add a little bit of color. This is, of course, for my kids, and these are going to be tossed around. So it's, something fun and quick and easy for them. So I colored the igloo the same way, and I sort of retouched the ice again. And that was that for those. For the little fish, I used 2 colors of yellow and just quickly blended them in. You can see how quickly that went. I think these little fish are so cute. And then we'll move on to coloring the polar bear and the seal. So I used a light gray Zig marker and then sort of intensified it a little bit using a very, very light sort of blue-gray color. And then I just blended it all out with a water tank brush. So this is just it's like a paintbrush, but it has like a tank in it that's filled with water. So you don't have to keep adding water to your pen. I do, however, keep a paper towel over on the side, and whenever it gets too wet or it gets too much ink on it, I just sort of blot it off on the paper towel on the side, and then I can continue my blending. So again, this is really basic stuff. I didn't go overboard with it. I just want to add a little bit of color to the polar bear to give him a little definition. I'm going to do the same thing with the seal. I'm using the same colors, although I did use a little bit more of the blue for the seal. So again, you can see I'm doing the same thing. And I'm not going to show you the coloration for the rest of the images. To tell you the truth, I sort of messed up the penguin the first time. I had to restamp him and color him again. And I didn't like how the deer was turning out, so I just sort of abandoned the deer and decided to use the other ones that I had. So now I'm going to be die cutting everything out. I do have the matching dies for all these stamps. If you don't have the dies, I mean, you can fussy cut them out. It just takes more time, but the end result looks just as nice. So what I like to do is die cut as many as possible the first pass. So I line up my dies over the stamped image and I put some post-it tape over top to keep it secure, and then I run it through the Big Shot. And once that sort of first pass is done, I pop all the die cuts out, any dies that I don't need to use again, I put aside. And then like for the fish, I'll have to use that again. For the little ice, I'll have to die cut that again. So I just, you know, try to cut as many at a time as possible to save some time. Once that's all done, what I will do, and I just wanted to share this with you, is I will go and, you know, look for all the dies, make sure that I have all the dies, put them right back in the same packaging for the same reason as I, you know, clean the stamps so that I don't lose anything. So now I'm going to be preparing the background for the post-it holders, and I decided to just, you know, create a whole length of colored watercolor paper, and then I'm going to die cut it later. Just instead of die cutting everything and then coloring everything, I thought this would be easier. So I started off with some cracked pistachio. Now I'm moving in with some Mermaid Lagoon. That's sort of going into the middle and just blending that in, and then I'll blend it again with the cracked pistachio, and then I'll sort of flip it to the other side. I have a little piece of paper here so I can put my fingers on it so I don't leave finger marks on the watercolor paper. Your fingers will pick up some of the dye, so I use this little piece of paper. And I'm putting on, this is a blueprint sketch, so putting that along the bottom. And then I'll go back in with the Mermaid Lagoon, just blend it all out. Once it looks the way I want, I will spritz it with water from my distress sprayer. And then I will just dab the water off, and I get a nice distressed look. And then I'll take another piece of watercolor paper and do the exact same thing. So I just wanted to show you very quickly that if your ink pad is sort of dried out, you can use this distress refresher to spritz your ink pad, and it sort of extends the life of your ink pad. So that's what I did for one of those. And you can see I have my nice 2 pieces of watercolor paper. And I'm going to cut them out now using a die from My Favorite Things. This is the cross stitch square set, and this is the second largest. So now I will start laying out my components, getting a feel of how they're going to look. And I realized that the owl looked a little funny. He was sort of like floating in the air. So I decided to take a branch. This is from the Cheery Christmas set, and I'm going to emboss that. And I'm going to also emboss a sentiment from the Critters in the Snow set that says Happy Winter. And they have a few little snowflakes that I'm going to use as well. So I'm just sort of placing them out, looking how they're going to sort of fit on my scene. And then I will take a anti-static bag, just to rub the top there, and I will stamp the sentiment and the snowflake using a Versamark and set it aside. And I'll do the same for this one. You can leave the Versamark for a little bit. It doesn't dry for a while, so it's just faster to do it this way. I will stamp this branch as well so that the owl has something to sort of sit on. And then I'll go ahead and stamp the sentiment. And then last time for the polar bear, I did have to remove one of the snowflakes. And then I'll just take each of those and I will sprinkle on some white embossing powder, tap off the excess, and I did it for all of them. And I don't know if you're going to notice, but I forgot something. Can you guess what it was? I forgot to sprinkle powder on the branches for the owl. I just completely forgot about it. So I did go ahead and heat set all that embossing powder. I love using these little tweezers. It makes it so much easier just to sort of pick them up and grab them. And then I made the base for my post-it holder. So it measures 7 across and 3 1/4 in width. And then I just scored it at 3 1/4 on each side. I scored it at 3 1/4, flipped it, and scored it at 3 1/4. So that's how I made these little holders. And I will put the dimensions at the bottom of this video for you. Now I have my post-it paper, my post-it notes, and I just buy these in bulk at Costco. So I had a bunch of them, so I pulled out the green and blue ones. Putting some score pal tape there because it's a nice sort of strong adhesive, and I'm pressing it down into the holder. Do that for each one. Just make sure you align it nicely. And now I'm adding some glue adhesive to each of the scenes. And I still haven't noticed that I don't have the branch. So once I start gluing them down, I'm going to be using some Zig glue. It starts off blue, like when you use it, it's blue, but when it dries clear. And I like using it because you can sort of get into all the nooks and crannies of the images. And then I'll just put a block on it and it will dry flat to the surface. So that's when I realized, oh, I don't have the branch for my owl. So I was actually able to, and I can't believe it, but I was able to just sprinkle powder over the area where I had stamped it, and it was still there, and it was still perfect, and it worked perfectly. So I was really lucky. So I'm just continuing to put the rest of my little pieces down. This one is for the seal. And finally I have my little penguin for my little penguin lover in my family. I love these little fish. They are so cute. So now you have all 4 of them. They're all done, all ready to gift to my kids and to my husband. I made one for him as well. And you can see how cute those are. And they last a little bit. Usually I get to fill them a couple of times with Post-it holder paper before I have to create new ones. So thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. A list of all the supplies and links can be found below this video on YouTube, or you can visit my blog. Thanks for watching.